Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. This is Gemini Brett here from the School of Earth Astrology. And today is not October 31st, 2021, but I want to start our investigations there as we speak about daylight losings crime, which is how I prefer to feel into this thing they call daylight savings time. Hot topic now, but you know, this was originally called wartime. Look into it. And typically we're taught, well, it's great for farmers, right? Ask them. Daylight losings crime. Why now? Because we're about to, what do they say, spring ahead? And I'm here on October 31st, 2021 to look at the time where we most recently fell back, or at least the clocks did. So do we? I think that's a very important question. How much are we connected energetically to our systems of timekeeping? Do you know how we used to keep time? It was called the sun, right? And day and night. And the principal hours of the day were sunrise, which is when still in magical time, the astrological day begins. And sunreach, midday, halfway between sunrise and sunrest. The sun setting in the west, and then who knows, sometime exactly between sunset and the following sunrise, sun roots down below, the middle of the night. And it's interesting that at this time, we begin days in the middle of the night. Not everyone. There are some traditions still that begin their days at sunrise. Some who begin their days actually at sunset, which is an interesting and beautiful truth that would bring us to the moon. And I don't want to go there today. I want to stick with the sun from roots when it begins its climb. So it's interesting to think about starting time then. Rise, sunrise, when we have evidence of that living fire of our sky who reaches halfway between sunrise and sunset. And then root, rise, the reach is at the MC, the medium cele, the midheaven, right? And then resting at the descendant, astrologically speaking, rooting down below at the IC, the imum cele, the bottom of the heavens, rising at the ascendant, yes. And this is the sunwise motion, which in the northern hemisphere is clockwise. From the rise in the east to the reach in the south to the rest in the west, to the root in the north, rising in the east, reaching in the south. This is northern hemisphere. And if you turn your back to the light and look at your shadow at midday, the sun at the midheaven, it will point north. And if you watch your shadow throughout the day, it moves like a clock as well. Just not all the way around, because once the sun sets, no shadow for you. But a very cool truth is a full moon time where the full moon rises at sunset and reaches at sun root. Right? Like the full moon will continue the shadow play that the sun gave throughout the day, with a couple short breaks at sunset and later sunrise, because even the full moon, when it's at the horizons, when the dawn or dusk light is still hiding the heavens, is not illuminated enough to cast a shadow. All right, so speaking of shadows, let's go to Halloween. And I'm here at Halloween on sunrise. This is October 31st, 2021. I cast the chart for Richmond, California, where I currently sit. And the sun rose that day at 7:38:49 a.m., according to this wonderful machine called Astro Gold software, okay? And I can later go from that sunrise at, let's call it 7:40 for the sake of math, and go to sunset by asking the machine to say sun at the seventh house cusp, the descendant, and we get 6:07 p.m. And so we went from 7:40 to 6:06, which is like 26 minutes plus the difference from 8 to 6, which is 10 hours. Okay, so on October 31st, we had a day that was like 10 hours and 26 minutes. That's like 626 minutes. And I clearly did some bad. No, that's right. 626 minutes. Let's look at that divided by 12. Oops. We need one of those. So every hour, astrological hour or magical hour on this particular day in this particular place was like 53 minutes long. These days we celebrate time through these civil hours of clock time where every hour is 60 minutes, right? Of 60 seconds. You all know that. Do you know the old way of keeping time, which is that the hours of the day are just 1/12 of the time between sunrise and sunset, which is very particular to your particular location. So if my math is right, and I like estimated things anyway, but every hour is going to be about 53 minutes here. One of the genius truths of the Placidus house system, let me go back to sunrise, is that every house cusp will greet the sun as it moves through 2 hours of, in this case, the day, as we move the sun rising at the ascendant, the cusp of the 12th and the first house, and then climbing up to the cusp of the 11th and the 12th house, which won't be 1530 Libra at that time. It will be where the sun is in 2 hours or 2 astro hours. The sun's not going to move too far from 823 Scorpio, maybe at 8:30. So let's just ask this software to take us to another cusp. And let's see if we've moved about 106 minutes, which would be an hour and 46 minutes, right? So let's play with that. So I'm going to add an hour and 49 to 740, which is like 9:29, right? Oh my gosh, my math brain doesn't work as well now that I'm opening the other side more. So let's just ask the machine to take us to the next cusp. Oh, and 9:23. So I did some bad math for sure. From 7:38. Anyway, this is 2 hours of time. So let's go from 9:23 to the next 11:08. So that's not 2 hours. 9:23 plus 2 hours is 11:23, right? Yes, on the clock. But again, if we're using magical hours, which is just 1/12 of the daylight for a day-like hour, it's going to be 1/12 of the time from sunrise to sunset. And in the fall and the winter, daylight hours are shorter than nighttime hours, right? Okay. So the thing I really want to show you is this. Let's go back. We're going to go sunrise. So sun at the first, 7:40 a.m. to sunset, 6:06 p.m. on clock time. Halfway in between, the sun will culminate. It will reach its highest height at the midheaven, which in the Northern California, temperate Northern hemisphere, is always due south. Okay, so on this day, the sun's south on the clock at 12:53 p.m. It's very important if you're reconnecting to natural time to understand that noon on the clock has nothing to do with noon, okay? Consider the truth that here, Richmond, California, which is right by San Francisco, Oakland, the Bay Area, we're on the very western side of the state, yeah, at the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. Go all the way to the eastern side of the state. Let me show a map here. Like all the way over here near Reno, Lake Tahoe zone is right on that side. Like in this same moment, they're going to call that 12:53 also. But the sun is rising there before it rises here. The sun is setting there before it sets here. The sun is reaching there before it reaches here, right? So we'll have this astronomical, golden, natural time experience in the same time zone at different times on the clock. We used to just call this noon, when the sun reaches its daily height at midday, when the sun souths and the shadow norths, and you ring the bell and you call the folks in from the fields, right, to eat some lunch, and then they head back out until the next principal time of the day. What's that called? Sunset. When do you think they're out working tomorrow? Sunrise, yeah? So as the days grow shorter and longer, your work day is growing shorter and longer along with it. right? Well, that's not working. And, I'm working 9 to 5, and I like know exactly my length of time that I'm committing to a job or whatever it may be. All right, well, that's actually a lot of just kind of intro for what I want to get into here. So let's just look at, we could go from sunrise and let's start there. So sunrise on Halloween 2021 locally was on the clock time, 7:39 a.m. All right, what about the next day? 7:40 a.m. And the next day, 7:41 a.m. Let's look at that day. That's November 2nd, 2021. Let's look at sunset. So the sun rose at 7:41 a.m. and set at 6:05 p.m. The next day, the sun rises at 7:42 a.m. and sets at 6:03, 6:04 p.m. You see how the day's getting shorter? Hello, Scorpio new moon. Almost. We'll see that sometime during the next day. Well, we know the days are getting shorter as we approach the shortest daylight day of the year, which is called winter solstice. Yeah. Still some ways away at November 3rd. We're just at the cross quarter time, the sun at 15 Scorpio, halfway between autumnal equinox and winter solstice. And this is a natural experience. So we'll get back to the chart, but this is the primary focus here, okay? As we're exploring the primary motion, the sunrise, reach, rest, en route, and the secondary motion, which is the sun moving through the signs. Why? Because the earth is orbiting the sun, the year. Why does the sun rise and reach and rest en route? Because the sky spins. Why? Because the earth spins, right? So we're spinning 365 times as we orbit the sun. The spinning of the earth brings sunrise to sunset. The orbit of the earth has the sun moving through our constellations and through our signs. Yeah. Golden time, natural time, solar time brings us into that energetic experience of fall, right? Like the sun is falling in the sky, literally, and the hours of day are shrinking, falling, you see. That actually happens amazingly at summer solstice. Think about it. Summer solstice is the longest day of the year. So the daylight hours begin shrinking then. Slowly. At fall, it's happening quite quickly. It's actually the greatest amount of change from one day to the next in regards to hours of day or hours of night is at the equinoxes and at solstices, which means the sun stops the slowest. Okay, it's this pendulum motion, solstice, equinox, solstice, equinox, solstice. You feel that? Okay, and we are meant to, as human beings, whether we're tracking this, keeping the days and keeping the hours or not, and that's the gig for the student of time and space, the astrologer, okay? But if we're just out in the fields, sorry, I shouldn't say just, if we are out in the fields, right? If we are in the studio, whatever it may be, experiencing that natural golden time synchronizes our hearts to the heart of Mother Earth, to our planet. So when you start bringing in construct time, clock time, right? Construct time, calendar, especially calendars that are themselves not devoted to astronomical cycles, which is a tricky thing to do, by the way. It's a long story. When we start clocking ourselves, which it's necessary if we want to get to the train on time or the Zoom video, but these are very new things, right? Like a Zoom webinar, really new, even a phone conference, pretty new, a train, still kind of new. What about millennia ago? If we all want to meet for the community gathering, what do you say? How about 1 hour past sunset, 3 days after the full moon of the third month? You see, like that kind of thing. And we can all then travel from our different sides of a continent, perhaps, or even get in the boat and sail to another one and make the meeting, because we are all aligned to the natural time of the clock of the heavens. And beautifully, our clocks were built. I mean, we're losing this in the digital age, right? Where, I don't know, I mean, I guess I could get an app, but I just push this thing and it says 11:11. Well, no, it doesn't, but it sounded cool. It says 11:12. It's a great number for astrology, right? And I don't even get to see the clock hand simulating the movement of the sun. And sadly, it's actually not synchronized to the movement of the sun like the shadow of a sundial is. But if you want to work with sundial time, now you have to do a bunch of math to rectify that to clock time, the big boss in a clocky like calendar, consciousness. I'm happy to be inspired to speak about this today because I, next month in Mexico, will be giving a talk on calendars and consciousness. I will be down there to experience the equinox and to see the infamous shadow serpent at the Great Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza. And then tuning into Maya time and the day keepers there, right? To speak about, well, what is that 2021 thing? Is it over? Oh, it looks like we did the math wrong. Is it meant to be a moment anyway? And on and on and on. I think that unconsciously, we are very much controlled by calendar and clock system. And that one of the great gifts of being an astrologer, and I don't mean like a practicing consulting astrologer, right? Or I mean someone who is following the planets, the planetes, which means wonders, and that includes the luminaries, the lights, right? This reconnects us to natural time. Many of us are celebrating the movement of the sun from one sign to another. Those are golden months. The sun moving through 1/12 of our great circle of spirit. Many of us are celebrating new moons. These are silver months, or really platinum, I guess, earth, moon, sun, right? So silver and gold coming together every month. Yeah, and we are thereby, without even being conscious of it, and that's okay, reconnecting ourselves to natural time. What if we do this consciously now? If my claim is true that our calendars are unconsciously controlling us, what if we choose to consciously control them? What kind of relationships will happen as a result? And what is the madness if we're not conscious of this? Besides that, you have to set the clock an hour forward or an hour back, right? I mean, most of us are using so-called smartphones for clocks these days, which do it automatically. But what changed? I mean, how many people actually now, and especially as we move towards the future, won't even notice that their like smart devices updated their clock to daylight losings crime or took it away? You won't even notice that, wow, the sun's setting a lot like later than it did yesterday. How did that happen? Right, there's just an hour gets pulled out from underneath your feet. I've heard it said, and I don't know if it's sourced correctly, but that only the white man could believe that he could cut a piece of the blanket and sew it to the other side and make a longer blanket. Right? That's daylight's losing crime. Beautiful, though somewhat triggering poetic expression. So here we were at November 3rd, where the sun sets at 6:03, and the next day the sun rises at 7:43 and sets at 6:02, and the next day rising at 7:44. Wait, what? So the day before the sun rose at 7:43, now it's 7:44. Okay, days are growing shorter. And the next day at 7:45. And the next day at 6:46. Wait, that can't be right. Let me rewind a few days here. So I'll go back to October 31st. Sunrise, 7:39, 7:40, 7:41, 7:42, 7:43. Can you feel the pattern? Can I hear 7:44? 7:45. How about 7:46, 46? What? Daylight losing's crime, right? So the length of the day is decreasing just according to nature. There's nothing that clock controllers can do about it, right? But there's this weird magic spell that goes down, right? Let's look at midday. I'll rewind again some. Start at Halloween. It's just a powerful place. And we'll look at the sun reaching the midheaven. That's the 10th house cusp of a quadrant chart, like a Placidus chart, which does a beautiful job of tracking sun time. So here we are, sun reach at 12:53. That's not noon. And then 12:53 and 12:53, 12:53. Changing by a second, you probably see over here, 12:52:58, 12:53 even, 12:53:02, 11:53:06. Well, why shouldn't I celebrate that? I mean, now true noon, that we're forced currently to call local apparent solar noon. Okay, that's midday, halfway between sunrise and sunrest. It's the sun reach. It's the shortest shadow of the day because the sun is highest in the sky for the day anyway. It's noon, right? Sun reach. And here it's pretty close to clock noon because of this daylight savings time. What did I save? I guess I saved the paradigm because now at least noon is kind of noon. So now let's just go day by day from there, which is November 7th, 2021. And I'm not going to read all of these times because I want to go quickly, but you can see it approaching noon. And this is going to be different for not only the different latitudes, how far we are from the equator, which is very much going to determine the length of day, but also longitude, not because that in any way determines the length of day. So for example, here in Richmond, California, where I sit at 38 north of Earth's equator, 38 degrees between Earth's equator and the North Pole, which is 90, I'm at the same latitude as Athens, Greece. And every day, though their days, in a sense, begin almost half a day before mine do, but every day will be the same length of time because we're at the 38th parallel. That's true for all places in between, in both directions. The reason why longitude matters, like Athens at the same latitude in Richmond, California, the reason why longitude matters is because of where you are in your time zone, right? So again, Lake Tahoe on the east side of California is going to experience the rising sun before Richmond at the west side of California in the Bay. So this is very specific to location, and I can celebrate December 5th, 12 p.m. and 13 seconds, maybe December 4th, which I've always celebrated as my mother's birthday, because here we see 11:49:48, right? So I'm even closer to clock noon, 12 seconds off. Astrologers love that number. Here's the sun at 12 plus Sag, 12 seconds off from noon in my local place. We're going to cruise from there, okay? And we're going to see now that the sun is culminating at midday at the midheaven after clock noon. And I'm into the 12:02s now. And here we go. Getting closer and closer to the shortest day of the year, December solstice, where here in local space, the sun culminated during its Capricorn ingress, the tropical zodiac. When the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, it shines directly above Earth's tropic of Capricorn, as far south as it can on Earth, as far from Richmond, California as possible, hence the shortest day, the least light. And then at that time, solstice, the sun stops its southern journey, turns around. Greek for turnaround, by the way, is tropikos, you see, tropical zodiac, Tropic of Capricorn. And then the sun will begin traveling north for 6 months until it reaches its northern extreme at the tropico called Cancer, where it will stop and turn around, solstice, you see? So this is the sun, let me show you on the map, furthest from California, where I am here. Let's just show it like this. This is where the sun was directly overhead in this moment. So it's culminating for me here in the Bay Area of California. I have to look south, you see, to find the sun, which was directly overhead this place of the ocean on the Tropic of Capricorn, as it is every year somewhere in the Tropic of Capricorn when ingress tropical Capricorn. See how that works? People think that the tropical zodiac is not astronomical because it doesn't align to the constellations. It's like, it's earth-stronomical, y'all. Astrology is measured from the center of Earth. So the School of Earth Astrology, which you can learn more about at geminibrett.com/courses if you'd like. All right, so here we are, December solstice, and the midday sun was at 12:08. I want to look at when did the sun rise that day, and the answer is 7:26 to 7:27 a.m. on the clock, and set at 4:49. So a rather short day, right? And halfway in between those times, we get sun reach at the midheaven. Now, if you live further from the equator than I do, you're like, that's not a short day. Let me tell you about a 6-hour day, friend, right? Or an 18-hour day in the summer solstice side of the thing. But for now, let's just finish by bringing us quickly from this time, day by day, and we'll just track the sun at the reach. So now we're at 12:08 p.m. And we're going to see that the sun itself, the midday sun, the true noon sun, as we're moving through the days, and you can see the moon helping us experience that on the chart, that it's slipping away midday from midday on the clock. But then suddenly this interesting thing happens. All right, let me try to catch it again. Here's February 8th. 12:23:35 on February 11th, 12:23:34 on February 12th. Let me go back. So I was at 12:23:33. Now I'm just going to speak the seconds because you're seeing what's happening. 33, 34, 35, 35, 34. What? It started getting further from noon and started getting closer to it. What in the heavens is happening there? And it kind of seems like a golden time thing. So you'll notice all of these are around half an hour to right on midday. And now as we're into March, here's today, March 7th, 2021. I hope that's not now because I would be in a session. It's getting close. I'm about an hour before this time live. Taurus Moon reflecting Pisces light, that beautiful sextile smile. I could go out right now and see it over there because I know south is that way and the sun is just about to culminate, okay? This chart is the sky, especially if you're standing in the northern hemisphere. It's very easy to get outside, face the midheaven, which is due south, and just see that it will show you where the rest of the planets are. All right, so anyway, 12:20 p.m. for midday sun in my local place of Richmond, California today. What about tomorrow? 12:20:04, 12:19:49, 12:19:34. We're approaching noon. 12:19:18. Go, go, go. 12:19. 1:18:46. What just happened? Daylight losing's crime, friends. Why? Why do this? Why ever do that? because I can say, oh, on the clock, yeah, I can, let's go, midday is getting closer to noon, like that feels really good. Or I can go watch the sunset. I'm very blessed to not have to go anywhere. I'm looking at the west right outside of a window in Mount Tam, and I get to watch the sunset throughout the year and show me about the signs and how they keep these houses on the horizons. It teaches me traditional and hopefully modernized, if we can bring our earth astrology back to astrology, like reclaiming the roots of our craft, which is things like this, the sun walking sideways on the horizon. By the way, you can see it in the Cancer glyph. So here we are, sunset on the 12th, 6:09. I better rewind a couple days. So here's the 10th. Oh, that's right. 10th is 6:08. 6:09 sunset. So we're like, oh, cool, days are getting longer. 6:09, 7:10. What? So it literally just went from, okay, we're like kind of, finishing up with dinner, about to sit down, watching literally, it's getting warmer, so we'll go outside, we'll eat dinner outside, engaging with the sunset. And then suddenly now it's like kids' bath time as the sun is setting. It's an hour later, but it's not a fucking hour later at all. What? Losing's crime. So there are two states, Hawaii, right, which was, I guess the right way to say this, claimed most recently that's still keeping natural time, and Arizona. They're the only ones that have foregone this weirdness of daylight losing's crime. And so today, as I was connecting with a friend for a Zoom meeting who lives in Arizona, we were off by an hour. So I thought maybe daylight losing crime happened yesterday, which is what stimulated this conversation. Turns out my friend just made a mistake, but it's an easy one to make because the lords of time, of clock and calendar, deem it necessary to steal an hour, to cut that hour off a 24-hour blanket and then sew it to the other end. What? Well, friends, you who are astrologically inclined, and probably especially those of you who are also paying attention to the planetary hours, as they're now called, magical hours, 12th of daylight or a 12th of nighttime. Those of you who are following the sun through the signs, who are celebrating new moon, full moons, and connecting to that great synodic cycle, the meeting of the lights, you are reconnecting to natural time. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging for you when suddenly a 6 p.m. sunset becomes 7 p.m. the next day. And as noon was approaching clock noon, suddenly that rug gets pulled right out from under our feet and we're at like 1. Why? Oh God, I wish I could move. Wait a second, look at that view. I'm blessed. Gratitude. I'm grateful for you spending some time here today. It's a typical rant of mine, kind of twice a year, journeying into daylight losing's crime. But I'm excited to just share this video with my peers at the School of Astrology, because I know that they are day by day connecting more consciously into golden time, natural time, which helps us connect to and express the mystical truth of time, which is not just some construct of human being, right? Well, unless we built the earth and the moon and the sun.